Hey, welcome back to Ping Pong Flicks. My name is Chris Wong. There's a ton of Justice League content out there, and some of it's spoilery, some of it is great information, and some of it's got some negative things about it and positive things about it. But I would just want to focus on few things. Now, Justice League had screened in London. There was a press junket, and there were a lot of critics that were able to watch the film and then meet up with the cast and crew and had a great interviews with each and all of them. And then something else happened today. The Wall Street Journal released an article, and this is the article you see right here. Can the Justice League keep up with the offbeat superheroes? I had to put in an email form because apparently when you go to the Wall Street Journal, you have to log in, you have to subscribe in order to see the full thing. But you can see the full thing on your mobile phone if you log in through your mobile phone. So what I did, I went through the mobile phone, just copy and paste and sent myself an email. It goes through all the details and it creates a narrative. It's almost like a timeline narrative of what transpired since Batman v Superman. And I want to go through that base here. I know there's things in here like the big budget's nearly up to 300 million, and they have pulled their own opinions in here, which I don't particularly agree with. But I just want to look at the parts that seem very factual because they are coming from actual quotes, and it fits a timeline scenario that actually would have taken place if this were true. I highlighted here when last year, concerned that their superhero pictures were becoming too dark and violent, Warner Brothers assigned fan favorite comic book writer Jeff Johns and production executive John Bird to oversee the DC movie slate and give it a more optimistic tone. Their first task was a last-minute rewrite of Justice League, done with the Batman v Superman team of Zack Snyder and screenwriter Chris Terrio, to make the movie less serious and more hopeful. Mr. Sugihara also made it clear he wanted Justice League to be under 2 hours, said a person close to the movie. Batman v Superman, by contrast, ran 151 minutes. So production ran from March through October of 2016. When director Zack Snyder delivered his cut earlier this year, studio executives felt he had made progress with the lighter elements, but that more work was needed. So on comes Joss Whedon, the Buffy Vampire Slayer creator and writer-director of 2 Avengers movies for Marvel, already was working with Warner on a movie about DC heroine Batgirl and was given the Justice League rewrite. When Mr. Snyder's daughter died, Mr. Whedon oversaw several weeks of reshoots with his predecessor's endorsement, said Mr. Emmerich. And aficionados likely will be able to pick out the clever dialogue heaviness shot by Mr. Whedon and the more stylish action scenes shot by Mr. Snyder. But the creative team has endeavored to meld the two. A lot of the work was integrating the 2 tones and making it feel like one movie, said a person close to the post-production process. Just from that little tidbit there from this gigantic article about the upcoming Justice League, we can kind of pick that apart and put that within the timelines that would make sense, because as you and I know, there were a ton of articles. Once the word reshoot happens, okay, people go nuts, go crazy. They start making up stories about big reshoots, small reshoots, anything. You know, it's never really sure how much of those were reshot. This article seems to clear up those issues because it has to. I mean, I'm glad it came out because it actually fits in with some of the timeline, fits in with some of the interviews that had happened recently. I mean, it totally decimates for people like, say, John Schnepp from Collider Heroes, who I used to respect very much highly, but he likes to spout weird things like saying the Justice League was reshot 3-4 times, and it's just not true. So I want to go back and look at the timeline again. Let's go back in time, March 11, 2016, where Chris Terrio talks Justice League Part 1. Here, Chris Terrio talks about the tone. Batman v Superman is a bit of an Empire Strikes Back or Two Towers or any similar middle film in a trilogy. The middle film tends to be the darkest one. I do think from Man of Steel through Justice League, it is a one saga really. I expect Justice League will be totally not quite as dark as Batman v Superman. From that point, I felt compelled to go back and try to lift us and myself into a different tonal place, because I think when you write a darker film, sometimes you want to redeem it all a little bit. So that's talking about the tonal shift, the lighter tone that is being implemented into Justice League. And this was already being implemented March 11th of 2016. Then came the day, March 25th, 2016, Batman v Superman came out. Critically divisive, audience divisive. It ultimately made 870 plus million worldwide, so it was a financial hit, yet it did critically not so good. And in this time, it kind of goes forth to what we say in this article, where they were concerned about being too dark and violent. Warner leaders assigned at this time fan favorite comic book writer Jeff Johns as production executive. Now, to be clear, production ran from March through October 2016, which coincides with Chris Terrio's talking, and through Batman v Superman. Even Jeremy Irons, then in May 29, 2016, he says, "I think the next one will be simpler. The script is certainly a lot smaller. It's more linear." That would coincide with what Mr. Sugihara also cleared. He wanted Justice League to be under 2 hours. So at that time, in May 2019, the script between Chris Terrio and Zack Snyder was already shorter. It's much smaller and much more linear than Batman v Superman. They were already aiming for that 2-hour mark. Ezra Miller and Gal Gadot, he said that, "I definitely think it's a realization of a cohesive vision that comes, mainly from Zack, and comes from, the cumulative process of the building of the DCU. And I would feel that reflects majorly what Zack showed me in early comic frames in a lot of that movie." What's funny is that I think that Zack was doing a much lighter, more comedic, almost more Whedon-y thing, and then Joss stepped on and was fulfilling Zack's vision. It's an incredible instance of two artists in collaboration and honoring each other's work. So let's go back to that article. Production ran from March through October of 2016, when director Zack Snyder delivered his cut early this year. Studio executives felt he had made progress with the lighter elements, but that more work was needed. He needed a little bit more help. Now, to be fair, during this time, earlier this year, is when Zack Snyder's daughter committed suicide. So it could be, and I myself, if something had happened to my kids, my mind wouldn't be in the right place. And I would definitely need help in finishing a movie that I no longer really cared for. I no longer cared for making movies because a part of you has passed away. Joss Whedon already was working with Warner Brothers on a movie on a DC heroine, Batgirl. And he was given the Justice League rewrite. They asked him what does he think about helping out, because Zack Snyder's daughter died. Zack Snyder emotionally could not continue. So Whedon oversaw several weeks of reshoots with his predecessor's Zack Snyder's endorsement, said Mr. Emmerich. Now, this is the part where in the Wall Street Journal it confirms this. Whether this is true or not, but it's Wall Street Journal after all. Aficionados likely will be able to pick up the clever, dialogue-heavy scenes shot by Mr. Whedon and the more style action scenes shot by Mr. Snyder. But the creative team has endeavored to meld the two. There you have it. This is obviously confirmation. The movie has not been reshot in its entirety for 3 or 4 times. There has not been major reshoots. Whedon was already working on part of the script earlier in the year, before Zack Snyder stepped away, to help him reshoot the scenes that was planned out by Zack Snyder. Whedon only did dialogue-heavy scenes. That's the little sprinkle. That's the part that makes it better. The dialogue heavy scenes. Not the stylish action, not all the other stuff. And that is why Zack Snyder is getting sole director credit, and that is why Joss Whedon is getting a co-writing credit, because he was already helping out with the written material before Zack Snyder left. So I just wanted to give you those points, and using all these articles and all these interviews that have taken place ever since it all happened earlier this year, and the point is, it was already going to be a lighter tone. Zack Snyder was already making it lighter. Joss Whedon came in after he was already helping write this movie, and he only directed reshoots for dialogue scenes. That is it. And I think that should be the final coffin on this whole Zack Snyder, whose movie it is. It is definitely Zack Snyder's movie, and Joss Whedon helped with the dialogue. Alright, I think that should handle it, and hopefully news goes out, and maybe media and some videos of other people's videos will go out to reconfirm that this is happening, and maybe say they were wrong about how it was before. I doubt it, but yeah, this movie was not reshot in its entirety, 90, 80, whatever percentage you want to put, and it wasn't reshot 3 times. It wasn't extensive as much of some articles and some people, some bloggers and some video YouTubers would want you to believe. This is the evidence, and it's right here on this computer screen. You can search it yourself. I'll put every single article, every single interview article in my description in this video, so you can check it out. The review embargo has not been lifted, and right now it's still slated to lift on November 15th. We know that some of the reactions seem to be really good, but get this, 2 reviews had gone up through a site called Letterboxd, 4 out of 5-star reviews. Those people were thinking were fake. Even myself, I didn't bother clicking on it, but it has come forward that Warner Brothers had told those 2 reviews to be pulled down because it violated the embargo. Why would they do that if it was fake? So my takeaway is that 2 of those reviews that were violated embargo and were placed up were 4 out of 5 stars. I think that is a sure win for me. And then, not to mention, in the Wall Street Journal piece right here, you may have already seen it reading ahead of me, but it says early cuts didn't achieve that goal, but the test screening of the final version recently earned audience scores close to those of Wonder Woman. And we all know how great Wonder Woman did turn out to critically well, very well critically received, very well audience received. If that gave you a little bit of hope, then I am happy to have shared that with you. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.